So science is wonderful. It's also useful, and I think one of the problems with science is that it suffers from the fact that it is useful, and so people think that's the only thing it is. And so science somehow feels the need to justify itself by its usefulness. And so you hear people saying things like, oh, well, we've got to conserve the Brazilian rainforest because you might get some medicine out of the bark of a tree or something like that. So, and I think that kind of utilitarian approach to science, as opposed to the beauty and the elegance of science, again, to use a musical analogy, it's a bit like saying that, justifying music by saying that it's good exercise for the violinist's right arm. Science is wonderful. And it's a privilege of every child, as I said before, and every adult, to recognize the beauty of the world in which we live from a scientific point of view. But science also teaches a skeptical attitude, a critical attitude. As I said before at the beginning, you ask questions. Why is such and such true? And I would love to see all our children educated in how to think critically, how to think skeptically, how to think statistically, actually, as well. There's an enormous amount of misunderstanding of Humanism is a positive creed, in a sense. It's atheistic. It takes its name from the view that humanity is on its own. We are on our own in the universe. We are increasingly understanding how we come to be here. Darwin told us that, a great scientist told us that. We understand that we are, as far as we know, alone in the universe. There may be other life forms in the universe. What an exciting prospect that would be. But we're on our own in our life. There is no higher power to look to. We've got to make the best of this life. We've got to make the best of this world. It's the only life we've got. Let's make the most of it. Thank you very much. Questions, if anybody would like to.
Professor Dawkins, I just like to...
Andrew, if I could ask Andrew Block, just to ask the first question. Andrew just introduced you as one of the candidates for the London mayoral elections, and we're delighted to have you here this evening.
Thank you very much. My name's Andrew Block. I'm a member of the London Assembly. First of all, Mr. Dawkins, can I say I hope you're surprised by how welcome you are. How receptive many members of the Conservative Party are to your ideas. I was discussing one of your books with a colleague in the Conservative Party one time, and he said, Richard Dawkins, he's a god! I think perhaps he missed the point. As I was walking in here this evening, I talked to a friend, and they know who they are, and I said, oh, you're here. And they said, and she said, yes, absolutely, but please don't tell my candidate. Now, how do we, as Conservatives, come out in the Conservative Party and face the opprobrium that we will get from a Conservative Party that still thinks it's the Tory Party prayer, or some of them think that? How do we come out?
Well, one thing I suppose I would say is that it's become entirely the norm to suck up to all religions. So, I don't know if there are MPs here who have Muslim constituents, but I bet you feel you have to suck up to your Muslim constituents just as much as the Christian ones. And they can't all be right. when you say you hesitate to come out, that suggests that the people you're hesitating to come out to have got some kind of a weird idea that any religion is better than no religion. And a lot of people think that, but that is totally illogical, because they are contradictory, they're mutually contradictory, as numerous wars through history have shown. So that would be one thing. But the other thing is just argue with them, say, well, look, why do you believe what are your reasons for thinking that there's a God? There isn't a single shred of evidence that there's a God. Tell them so. Get them to, the onus should be on them to argue their case. The onus should not be on you to argue your case. They've got to argue the case. If they want to believe in fairies or unicorns, they've got to argue the case for it, and the same goes for God.
So the gentleman there with the leaflet up.
Hi, thank you. Professor Dawkins, it's great to see you here. I think it's really a great time to be having this debate. But one of the things I do want to discuss is the effect that secularism and humanism will have on society. One of the big topics we've been discussing at conference this week is the morals, or the lack of morality, and some of the problems we have in modern society. Now, one of the things, I should say I'm an atheist, and I've been an atheist for a long time, but I do believe that religion does have something to offer in terms of giving moral guidelines to people. And I just wonder what you think is the ultimate consequence of secularism in terms of morality and a society which is failing to have any sort of moral guidelines.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of tried to answer that in my brief speech when I said I could only think of two reasons why morality might come from religion, and both of them were, well, one of them is terrible, which is getting it from the Bible. You've only got to read the Bible. I mean, just look at some of the books of the Old Testament. Actually, the New Testament as well, for that matter. I mean, the very idea of God. I mean, think of the central belief of Christianity, which is that the creator of the universe, the begetter of the laws of physics, the inventor of galaxies, of the entire space-time, couldn't think of a better way of ridding the world of sin than getting himself tortured on a cross. I mean, how pathetic is that? Even the New Testament doesn't actually have a very great moral message. There is no evidence that I'm aware of that religious people are any more free from crime than non-religious people. There have been one or two studies done, which one study that I often quote because it amuses me so is a study of a psychological experiment on controlled cheating. This was done in America, and it was a deliberate setup when students were unwittingly given an opportunity to cheat in exams. They didn't know that they were being spied upon, but they were set an exam, and it was carefully monitored whether they cheated or not. And they were divided up into 4 groups: atheists, slightly religious, moderately religious, and very religious. And of those 4 groups, the only ones who did not cheat were the atheists. And the experimenters suggested that the reason for this is that they were so bright they didn't need to cheat.